Hello. If you're watching this, you've already written your introductory essay or introduction, and you've also written your body paragraph number 1. What we're going to do before we move on to body paragraph number 2 is just do a little bit of housekeeping. What I want you to do is to copy all of the words in the body paragraph number 1 here on the right, and go all the way to the concluding sentence, and then go up to Cambria and make sure that they are all 11. And that will ensure that very closely it will fit onto one page. This one doesn't quite fit onto one page, but pretty close, you can see. And just double checking, it looks like it's all 11. Okay, so when we do transfer it into your final draft, it will be 11 points. So that's just to help you with that, taking care of that. And if you are an honor student and you're writing 11 sentences, this will definitely go on to the next page. Let's go ahead and move on to body paragraph number 2. Now, if you were following along in the last essay or the last video, then you already included in your body paragraph number 2 your subclaim, and both of your evidence sentences should already be in here. This one came along with the color. Get rid of that color. That's green. So that means that you are mostly done. Now, rather than take you step by step in each part, what I'm going to do is pause and fill in, write my analysis and my concluding sentence, which are the ones that I need to do. So I'm going to write my analysis for this evidence sentence, and I'm going to write my analysis for this evidence sentence, and then I'm going to write my concluding sentence. And then I'll come back to you and explain to you what I did. Before I go into the body paragraph number 2, what I do want to do is remind you to check to make sure that there is a clear transition from your body paragraph number 1 to your body paragraph number 2. And that transition should happen in this last concluding sentence. See how it says it transitions to the next body paragraph, which means you should have something about the paragraph above that you've written about that gives some kind of final thought and wraps the paragraph up. You can also restate the subclaim in your own words if you want in order to wrap it up. I did it a little differently here, but then you need to have a part of it that transitions to the next body paragraph. So in the previous paragraph I said, Slim aggressively asserts his power over Curly in order to speak up for what is right. And that part really talks about how in this paragraph above, he is acting more assertively because he's angry and frustrated with Curly and defending himself. But when we go into the next body paragraph, it doesn't talk about that. It shows him using empathy and kindness. And so this one more focused on his aggression and showing power aggressively. But the next body paragraph, this is the transition, is that he also demonstrates his power of influence in more subtle ways. And so you're going to see that in this next body paragraph. Now let's see if that makes sense just based upon my subclaim. So when I read my subclaim for body paragraph number 2, it says, Slim shows his capacity to influence other men on the ranch when he interacts with Candy and George, and through these interactions, the reader learns that respect, admiration, and loyalty can be earned by showing empathy to people who are most vulnerable. To me, that shows Slim's subtle behavior instead of aggressive behavior by talking about what it is that the reader would learn about human nature throughout this paragraph and through Slim's actions. So I need to show evidence of that. So my first piece of evidence says, as an illustration, when the men are gathered in the bunkhouse in the evening after a long day of work, Carlson tries to convince Candy to put down his dog, and he turns to Slim, who advises, Carl's right, Candy, that dog ain't no good to himself. I wish somebody'd shoot me if I got old and crippled. So then I have to, in my analysis, use inference and explain how the evidence shows their power. So here's how I did that. Both Carlson and George bend to Slim's advice because they truly believe Slim is making the decision in the best interest of the dog, and they trust his wisdom. So I used 2 places to show how he's being powerful, but I didn't use the word powerful. Instead, I used this phrase, that they bend to his advice. You could also have said something like that they listen to Slim's advice, that, later on they actually talk about how Slim's word is law. And so them listening to his advice or bending to his advice, I use the word bend because it seems a little bit more strong. that he's using his power in that moment. And then I also included that they trust his wisdom, and that is my an additional inference in here that shows that he has some power. Then my second analysis needed to explain how John Steinbeck uses his character's experiences to teach the reader about human nature. So what I did was I said, through Slim's actions, readers witness how selfless and caring humans can be because his recommendation to put Candy's dog takes into consideration both Candy's feelings for his companion as well as the dog's well-being. So to me, what the readers learn is right here. Readers witness how selfless and caring human beings can be. Okay, then I give the example. I relate it back to the evidence up here by saying some additional opinion and inference that his recommendation takes into consideration both Candy's feelings for his companion, the dog, as well as the dog's well-being. Okay, then I go to my second evidence sentence. Again, both of these, this whole chunk right here, going back to my subclaim, shows that he has the capacity to influence other men on the ranch, and that this is what the reader learns, but I say it in different words. Then I come down here to the second evidence sentence. In the end, when Slim, Carlson, and Carly arrive at the river just after George has killed Lenny, Slim sits down next to George and reassures him. Never you mind. A guy got to sometimes. Come on, George. Me and you will go get a drink. And as George gets to his feet to follow him, Slim continues to comfort him, saying, You hadda, George. I swear you hadda. Come on with me. So then I need to explain how he's showing power in this moment. So I use the term Slim's strength instead of the word power, instead of saying Slim's power. So Slim's strength in this moment is his ability to first recognize how difficult it was for George to end Lenny's life, and then react by comforting George in his moment of shock. So my assertion here, my opinion, is that he is showing strength because he's first able to recognize and then comfort George. So that's how I chose to answer it. Now in the second analysis, again, I have to talk about how John Steinbeck uses the character's experience to teach the reader about human nature. So I started with the learning. Humans have the great capacity for empathy, and Slim's actions demonstrate a deep understanding of how friendship enriches one's life. So I have kind of two parts in here that show what the reader learns about human nature. One is that humans have a great capacity for empathy, but also that humans have a deep understanding, his deep understanding shows how important friendship is to enrich one's life. Both of those are included. Then I go to my concluding sentence. Now in this concluding sentence, it's a little different than the previous one. The previous one was a transition to the next body paragraph. But this one is actually a transition to the conclusion right here. So this one says, Slim chooses to live his life thinking of others more than himself, revealing that even people in power can be caring and understanding. So again, I didn't restate the subclaim and using different words, but I did wrap up the paragraph and I transitioned into the conclusion. So that's your two body paragraphs. At this point, you should have your introduction, your first body paragraph, and you should be writing your second body paragraph now. You'll turn those into Canvas and provide some get some feedback from me, and then you can move on to your conclusion. Feel free to move on to your conclusion prior to that. I will have that linked on Canvas and I will have it available to you. You don't have to wait for me, but just so you know, I will be providing you some feedback before the final one is due. Good luck. I can't wait to read your work.